By the time Kaylin Davidson laid her 5-year-old son to rest, she had already been through more than most people could imagine. The grief, the online attacks, the rumors, all of it had pushed her to her absolute limit. Then she heard that someone was allegedly joking about her dead child on social media. That was the moment everything shifted. What started as a petty feud between two women on Facebook was about to turn into a homicide case that left an entire community stunned. At 32 years old, Kaylin Davidson was living in South Bend, Indiana, doing everything she could to raise her two sons, Kylan and 5-year-old Kyler. And before going any further, it's important to understand just how special Kyler was. This little boy wasn't your average kindergartner. He was already reading at a middle school level, and everyone who met him said he talked like a grown man in a child's body. He was incredibly bright and had already earned a spot at Kennedy Academy, a local school for gifted children. His future looked unbelievably promising. Kaylin worked hard to give her boys a better life. During the day, she worked as a medical assistant, and at the same time, she was studying to become a registered nurse. She stayed on her grind because everything she did was for her kids. But Kaylin also had a fiery side. She wasn't the type to let disrespect slide, and if somebody came at her, she believed in standing her ground. That mindset would eventually pull her into a nasty feud with a 26-year-old woman named Kimmery Wright. The beef started over something that should have never gone that far. Kimmery allegedly laughed at a video online showing one of Kaylin's relatives getting jumped. Instead of leaving it on social media, Kaylin and her cousin pulled up to the mall and fought Kimmery in person. After that, there was no turning back. The two women went back and forth almost every day, throwing shots online, posting subliminals, exchanging insults, and feeding a never-ending cycle of drama. It got so messy that it felt more like a reality show than real life, even though both women had children depending on them. Then, life delivered a tragedy that nobody could have seen coming. On April 30th, 2022, Derek Jackson dropped little Kyler off at his grandmother's house. It was supposed to be another normal day, nothing out of the ordinary. But later that night, around 10:30 p.m., everything changed. A frantic 911 call came in from a home on the 1000 block of Woodbine Way on South Bend's west side. According to police and dispatch audio, someone inside the house called for help after realizing that one child had accidentally shot another. Officers later confirmed that a 5-year-old boy had been shot by his 9-year-old relative. Kyler was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, fighting for his life. The 9-year-old wasn't physically injured, but police said the child was suffering significant emotional trauma from what had happened. When investigators first announced the incident, they didn't release Kyler's name. They only said that 2 young relatives were involved. Police also never shared exactly how the shooting happened, but they quickly determined that it was a tragic accident. For the next several days, Kyler fought as hard as he could. His family prayed for a miracle, but on May 4th, after roughly 72 hours in critical condition, he passed away. His family later announced that he had been taken off life support shortly after midnight. Their attorney released a statement explaining that Kyler died after children somehow gained access to a handgun. He didn't explain how they got the weapon, and police never released additional details, continuing to describe the case as nothing more than a heartbreaking accident. As the community mourned, Kyler's father, Derek Jackson, spoke with ABC 57 about the son he had just lost. Derek remembered a little boy whose future seemed limitless. According to Derek, all Kyler ever wanted was to prove how smart he was. Everybody loved him, and to his family, he wasn't just another child, he was the baby of the family, and they knew he was truly one of a kind. What hurt Derek the most weren't the big milestones that would never happen. It was the small moments they shared every single day. After finishing his overnight shift at work, he'd rush home every morning just to take Kyler to daycare. During those rides, they always had their own little motivational talks, reminding each other to stay focused. Those simple conversations became the memories Derek missed the most. Derek explained that Kyler had been staying with relatives when everything happened. Since he wasn't there, he refused to point fingers or place blame on anyone. He simply said he was at work when he got the phone call that turned his entire world upside down, and he wanted investigators to uncover exactly what happened. He also made it clear that there were no guns inside his own home. Because he spent so much time teaching, coaching, and working with children, unsecured firearms had always been one of his biggest fears. Even while carrying unimaginable grief, Derek wanted people to learn something from his family's loss. He urged every gun owner to lock up their firearms and take responsibility. He wasn't speaking about his son's case specifically because he still didn't know all the facts. His message was broader than that. Adults have a responsibility to protect children because one careless mistake can destroy an entire family forever. For Kaylin, the pain was almost impossible to survive. She tried to numb it any way she could, bouncing between alcohol, prayer, and endless Facebook posts where she poured out every ounce of her grief. At one point, she even publicly expressed anger toward her own mother. In her eyes, the woman hadn't reached out after Kyler died inside her home, and that silence felt like another devastating loss piled on top of the first. Even through all that heartbreak, Kaylin stayed focused on one thing. She was determined to give her little boy the funeral he deserved. But just when it seemed life couldn't get any crueler, another blow landed. She started hearing that Kimmery was allegedly making jokes online about Kyler's death, mocking her parenting and laughing at the worst moment of her life. Whether fueled by grief, anger, or both, Kaylin reached her breaking point. She jumped on Facebook Live with a friend and addressed everything head-on. Not long after that live stream, she posted a video of Kyler's street memorial. For a brief moment, it gave her a little peace. Cars drove past, people honked their horns, and the community showed that Kyler's memory still mattered. That moment didn't last. Just days before the funeral, someone destroyed the memorial. For a grieving mother already struggling to stay afloat, seeing her son's tribute vandalized was another crushing blow. Heartbroken, Kaylin returned to Facebook and poured out her emotions. She said that whoever destroyed an innocent baby's memorial deserved the hottest part of hell because Kyler had done nothing to anybody. Seeing that memorial torn apart pushed her right back into the darkness. It sent her back to drinking after she had been trying to stop. Still, somehow, she found enough strength to make it through the hardest day of all. On May 12th, she laid her son to rest. Later, reflecting on that day, Kaylin said that everything possible had tried to break her before the funeral. Family drama, rumors, problems with her funeral outfit arriving late, and even someone destroying Kyler's memorial had all piled on at once. Yet somehow, she managed to keep herself together until she could finally say goodbye to her little boy. But once the funeral was over, something inside Kaylin changed. The grief that had consumed her slowly gave way to anger. In her mind, she was done being mocked, done being laughed at, and done letting Kimmery disrespect both her and her son's memory. Now that Kyler had been laid to rest, all of her attention shifted back to the woman she believed had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Now, from Kimmery Wright's point of view, none of this was her fault. In her mind, she hadn't killed Kyler, she hadn't destroyed his memorial, and she couldn't understand why people kept pulling her into a tragedy she believed had nothing to do with her. As far as Kimmery was concerned, she had actually tried to calm things down. She had publicly said she was praying for Kaylin and her family, but she felt like nothing she said mattered. No matter what she did, Kaylin and the people around her seemed convinced she was somehow responsible for everything that had happened. Eventually, Kimmery stopped trying to explain herself. She still felt sympathy for a mother who had just lost her child, but she also felt she had become a target. And in her mind, if Kaylin wanted confrontation, then she wasn't going to run from it. Backing down simply wasn't who she was. 5 days later, on May 17, 2022, everything finally came to a head. While scrolling through social media, Kaylin noticed that Kamari was at the Linden Grill. Instead of letting it go, she quickly got dressed, left the house, and drove straight to the restaurant to confront her. Around 9:45 that night, an officer working near downtown South Bend heard 4 or 5 gunshots coming from the area around South Michigan Street. Within seconds, 911 dispatchers were flooded with calls. Witnesses reported that a huge fight had broken out inside the Linden Grill and that a woman had been shot outside. According to court documents and surveillance footage, Kimmery was inside the restaurant when Kaylin walked in and immediately hit her. The punch sparked a violent fight and the 2 women started throwing blows until several people rushed over and managed to pull them apart. Most people probably thought the fight was over. It wasn't. According to sources, Kimmery pulled out a handgun. The moment people saw the weapon, panic exploded throughout the restaurant. Kaylin and several others turned and ran toward the exit, trying to get away. But Kimmery followed behind them. As Kaylin fled, Kimmery allegedly fired multiple shots toward her and the crowd running out of the building. Once the shooting stopped, she calmly turned around and walked back inside the restaurant. By the time officers arrived, they learned that a woman suffering from a gunshot wound had already been taken to a nearby hospital. That woman was Kaylin Davidson. Despite doctors' efforts, she later died from her injuries. The tragedy sent another wave of shock through South Bend. First District Councilman Pastor Kenneth Lee spoke publicly about the heartbreaking situation, explaining that there is no preparing for the phone call telling a family that someone they love is gone. He described the overwhelming emotions that come with standing beside grieving relatives and trying to comfort people. To Pastor Lee, this wasn't just another homicide. It was another painful reminder of how violence continues to spread through communities, destroying families one tragedy at a time. Only days earlier, Kaylin had buried her 5-year-old son, Kyler, who had died after an accidental shooting involving his 9-year-old relative. Pastor Lee said the family had barely begun mourning that loss when they were forced to face another funeral. He explained that he had just delivered Kyler's eulogy, and now, only 5 days later, his mother was gone too. He said his heart went out not only to Kaylin's family, but also to everyone who witnessed the violence downtown and to the entire South Bend community. In his view, South Bend wasn't a violent city. Rather, it was individuals making violent choices that continued to leave innocent families shattered. He also pointed out that one family was now carrying 3 unimaginable burdens at once: the loss of Kyler, the emotional trauma facing the young relative involved in the accidental shooting, and now the death of Kyler's mother. Pastor Lee believed the community had reached a point where people needed to come together before another family experienced the same heartbreak. He questioned what remained if people could no longer protect and raise their children in safety. The shooting also rattled business owners throughout downtown South Bend. Marty Wilkson, a manager at the Chicory Cafe, said violence is always heartbreaking, but when it happens, just steps away from where people work every day, it feels much more personal and frightening. City leaders hope the latest tragedy would finally push people to confront the growing problem. Mayor James Mueller argued that many shootings aren't random acts of violence. Instead, they often begin as personal disputes that spiral out of control because someone decides to settle an argument with a gun. He stressed that this wasn't a problem the mayor's office or police department could solve alone. It would require the entire community working together. Pastor Lee shared the same belief. He said everyone deserves to enjoy simple things like going out for dinner or taking their children to the park without wondering if they'll make it home alive. He urged the community to reach people before conflicts turned deadly, saying everyone had a role to play in making the city safer. Now, the South Bend Police Department's Violent Crimes Unit wasted no time taking over the investigation. Detectives worked through the night, and by early the next morning, they had Kimmery Wright in custody. She was booked into the St. Joseph County Jail as investigators continued building their case. Police also reassured the public that there was no ongoing danger. According to investigators, this wasn't a random act of violence. It was an isolated confrontation between two people who already knew each other. Authorities identified the suspect as 26-year-old Kimmery Wright. South Bend Police Chief Scott Ruskowski explained that everyone involved in the confrontation was familiar with one another. Several bystanders had tried to separate the women before things spiraled out of control, but despite their efforts, the situation ended in gunfire. The shooting also marked South Bend's 9th homicide of the year. It was another painful reminder of how quickly one emotional decision can change lives forever. For the Davidson family, the unimaginable had happened twice. In less than a month, 2 separate shootings had claimed 2 members of the same family. Chief Ruskowski spoke openly about the heartbreak facing the Davidsons. He said the family was still trying to process the death of 5-year-old Kyler when they were suddenly forced to deal with losing Kaylin as well. Mayor James Mueller shared those same feelings, saying it was devastating to watch one tragedy piled directly on top of another. In his view, the cycle of senseless violence had to be broken before more families experienced the same kind of loss. On May 19, 2022, prosecutors officially filed charges against Kimmery Wright. She was charged with murder and voluntary manslaughter and remained in custody on bond. As the case moved forward, Wright appeared before St. Joseph County Superior Court Judge Jeffrey Sanford after prosecutors added a firearm enhancement to the charges. Her trial was expected to begin, but the judge ultimately postponed the proceedings, pushing everything back. While the legal battle continued, the Davidson family was still trying to survive their grief. On June 1st, Kaylin was finally laid to rest beside her son, Kyler. Mother and son, separated by only days in life, now rested side by side. Later that year, Kimmery was released on bond, and by Christmas, she was back home with her family. She celebrated the moment on social media, saying she felt blessed to be home for the holidays after praying she wouldn't have to spend Christmas behind bars. She described life and freedom as the greatest gifts she had received. Those posts immediately sparked outrage. Many people couldn't understand how someone facing such serious charges appeared to be celebrating. As the trial got closer, her social media activity became even more controversial. She posted confidently about the upcoming case and even encouraged people to come watch the trial, sounding more like someone promoting an event than someone preparing to fight for her freedom. About a week before jury selection, she posted that the trial would begin in 7 days. She expressed confidence that she would walk into the courtroom with her head held high and leave victorious. She also claimed the justice system was corrupt and argued that prosecutors cared more about securing a conviction than finding justice. Finally, on November 3, 2023, the case reached its conclusion. Court records show that Kimmery Wright was found guilty of voluntary manslaughter in the shooting death of 32-year-old Kaylin Davidson. Even though Kaylin had thrown the first punch, prosecutors said the shooting did not qualify as self-defense. They argued that once Kaylin was running away, there was no longer an immediate threat to Kimmery's life. The charging documents, however, did not explain what originally triggered the confrontation inside the restaurant. Although prosecutors had originally charged her with both murder and voluntary manslaughter, they later dismissed the murder charge. The jury also found her not guilty of the firearm enhancement allegation. In the end, Kimmery Wright was sentenced to 10 years in prison. The verdict divided public opinion almost immediately. Some believed justice had finally been served, while others argued that the sentence didn't come close to matching the devastation left behind. But when people step back and look at the entire story, one truth stands above everything else. The only completely innocent victim was 5-year-old Kyler. He was just a little boy with an incredible future ahead of him, a child gifted enough to earn admission into a school built for exceptional students, a little mathematical genius who never got the chance to walk through those classroom doors, grow into the man he could have become, or show the world just how far his talent might have taken him. His older brother, Kylan, suffered a loss that no child should ever have to endure. In the span of roughly 1 week, he lost both his little brother and his mother. The hardest part about this entire case is realizing how many opportunities there were for everything to end differently. The handgun could have been secured where no child could ever reach it. Family members could have surrounded Kaylin with support instead of allowing relationships to fall apart. The screenshots, fueling more drama, never had to be shared. Kyler's memorial could have been left untouched. Kaylin could have chosen to stay home with the son she still had, and Kemery could have walked away instead of pulling a gun. None of those things happened. Instead, 2 families were left shattered. Children were forced to grow up without the people who loved them most, and lives were destroyed over a social media feud that began with someone laughing at a video online. What remains is a family carrying unimaginable grief, children growing up with heartbreaking loss, and the painful reminder that every step leading to this tragedy could have ended differently. May Kyler and Kaylin Davidson rest in peace.